It's not a classified information that the events of the last year of 9 months have had a great influence not on trading, but post-trade servicing, settlement, clearing, risks. In this respect, I'd like to discuss with the panelists, whom I'm going to introduce a little bit about how the world has been changing from the perspective from the number and quality of players and the service providers. Let me introduce the panelists: Svetlana Gryanchenko, National Settlement Depository; Stanislav Bublik, Executive Director, Head of Electronic Market Distribution, Sberbank; Dmitry, General Director, Russia NCS; and Case Tippell, Head of Product, CLS Group, the biggest player on this market of the segment. Kate, can you hear us? He's not with us yet. I hope he will join us. For the starter, let me give the floor to the market participant. Stanislav, let's start with you. I'd like to ask you the following question. How, within these turbulent times which we are experiencing right now, the market is working in terms of settlements, clearing, risks? What has changed? Do we see well-shaped trends, or we are on a sustainable path right now? Everybody is satisfied with the current quality of infrastructure operation, and overall the operation risks are not that high. Thank you. I'd like to start with the following. Let's have a breakdown our discussion in several parts. The first concerns risks, credit risks, and the matter connected with facilitation of credit risk. And the second question concerns post-trading and post-trade services to the clients. The second issue is more of a simplistic nature, the trend which shaped over a couple of years before help of the clients to smoothly live through self-isolation and lockdown time, and to shift from the offices to remote mode. Of course, many experienced some difficulties. There was a kind of pressure on technical support, but most of our clients had kind of seamless experience, and our post-trade services demonstrated quite good results. Everyone understood what automated services can be used because they didn't have any experience at that period of time. In terms of credit risk component, we see the vivid trend towards services development, the services which would allow to facilitate credit limits as they're going up or going down from time to time. So the extension of services which would allow our clients to have transactions with liquidity providers on different tools, more or less under any market conditions and situation, is going to be a driver for the next years to come, and it concerns both transactions with derivatives or the mitigation of deliverable risks.
So I think that we may progress from a shock model to a sort of limited order book, where we have certain transactional costs, but there are also models with limits only, without collateral, and perhaps those models would be coming closer together, and clients would be using different models that would mix the two concepts. Thank you, Stanislav. I understand that overall the infrastructure of settlements and clearing has not changed fundamentally for you. We see that you are quite conservative in using the modes of settlements, and you mentioned that the traditional expensive model of centralized clearing, yes, it is so, but it still exists, and it proves to be efficient, and has proved to be efficient even in shock scenarios. But additionally, the markets may want to offer different models that would cover other needs. And I would ask Svetlana Gryanchenko to tell us more about those clearing models offered by NRD as a Russian institution that may be an alternative or rather complement the traditional clearing systems. Thank you, Pavel. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm happy to see some of you offline, but also others online. And I would like to thank Sergey for having this opportunity to present my views in front of this very authoritative audience. In answer to your question about the institution I represent here, we are an infrastructure institution, and NRD is representing the payment system. And on the basis of this national payment system, which is of systemic nature and which is of national significance, and this significance has been provided to us with the central bank under the federal law, and a decision was made to set up an infrastructural platform to conduct settlement on the basis of payment versus payment. NSD, National Settlement Depository, already has many years of experience of delivery against payments. We actually logically came to PVP, and that solution already has some history behind, and it is growing against the shocks that our market has been facing since 2014, which is quite a long time ago. So the idea was to present a mutual settlement procedure which would mitigate such a component of risk as settlement risk. NSD is also an institution with a very low tolerance to risk and no credit risk, no liquidity risk. We don't have those because of the requirements of law. And we, as an infrastructure, are a third party, an independent party with equal distance to all the participants. And the idea to create such an infrastructural platform really then has a certain grounds and logic behind. What is the idea there? PVP is your option to make settlements in the eFX market between the participants at a single point in time with mutual instructions. That is, you have some notional money transfer, which is only possible when you receive a counter payment. So if you have two parties, wherever they are, if they transact in the FX market, so for them to settle their transaction without the settlement risk between them, in NSD, each of the parties would deliver to its account the money that the party decides to pay as part of the transaction. And by issuing a PVP instruction to the account, with the money available, of course, on that account, at that same point in time, in real time also, the mutual settlement is done between the parties. That's why you avoid a settlement risk by 100%. The operational day for NSD is quite long, from 8:30 in the morning Moscow time to 8:30 in the evening, also Moscow time. Now, that is for external settlements, but internally we can continue to settle the transactions. Such a long operational day is quite favorable to the popularity of that service. There are advantages of that, the speed of settlement between the parties, the same date of valuation, no difference in valuation dates, and the instant availability of funds. We actually augmented the service recently with cut-off times for each of the currencies, so that the participants who would like to get this currency for their use and to take this currency wherever they want to take it. So a PVP instruction in a certain currency can be before the cutoff time and would be immediately available for the client. You don't need to pre-fund your account. You simply rely on your settlement rules of your banks and your practice of operations with that. You can pay rubles like at a click of a mouse there, but even despite that, we can, as the next step in the development of the service, we can provide the clients with the settlement possibility without delivering rubles to us, but keeping the rubles at the settlement accounts. We already have some experience with DVPs, that is, your money is still with you on your settlement account, but you designate this money to be available for a single transaction. So there's a per transaction amount and also a per day amount. And NSD, on your instruction, can go to your settlement account and take the rubles that they are needed for your transaction. Of course, this may be available for other currencies as well, if need be. Well, I mean, I should also say that we can interact with the clients via SWIFT and via client banks. It could be thick or thin bank clients, and we can also be a service of electronic document flow. The currencies available for transactions and settlements are more or less the most widely spread in the market. Rubles, as I mentioned, dollars, euros, the English pound, Swiss franc, Hong Kong dollar, and the Chinese yuan. But the cutoff time for those Asian currencies is very early. But still, clients are not scared because of this. So it's a question of your goals. Also, some Eurasian economic space currencies, Kazakh tenge, Belarusian ruble, and some other currencies, Georgian, Armenian, but their popularity today is not too high. But you still can settle in those currencies as well through NSD. What is needed for a participant to connect to this service? Just a step and a half, I would say. By the way, we also provide services to lending institutions and to professional players in the market, brokers and companies, but also non-professional players like corporations. And one of the parties in settlements for PVP should be a lending institution. So if they have a corporation on one side, then the counterparty should be a lending institution. If it's a broker on one side, then it should be a lending institution on the other one. So a step and a half. This is what it takes to get connected. An application to an SD to get connected to that service, and the indication of the accounts that would be active for such a service, and also sending a PVP instruction, which is actually quite detailed on our website, how to use it and how to issue it. And the most interesting question is how much does it cost? It's 3 units of the 3 million of similar units that you use for settlements. The tariffs are upgraded, but because of a certain demand and tendencies in the market for such services, we currently use the tariff of 3 notional units out of the 3 million units used for a transaction, but this is not kind of like a once and for all decision. We may revise those rates, again, depending on the tendencies in the market and the wishes of the players. Now, in terms of technology and the types of services, this is all I wanted to share with you. If you have any additional questions, and then we have these nice booklets here with the summary of the information that I shared with you right now. So, of course, we are open to any questions, and we would be happy to meet you halfway. And currently, NSD is open to all participants, and perhaps it is also a form of diversity in our market. Thank you. Thank you, Svetlana. Indeed, it's a good complement to the existing solutions that are being used, which is used OMV and others. We heard about the local market. We also heard the opinion and views of players. We heard the opinion of a platform, and we may conclude that in terms of technologies and level of automation in the local market, we are more or less doing well. There are no spikes of operational risks because of the current situation. But now we would like to take a look from a global play, from a global institution, which sees not only Russia but the whole of world, but with the similar challenges that we face today. Now we have CLS Group. Keith, do you hear us? I will be asking you questions in Russian, Keith, if I may. Keith, could you share with us how CLS is living through these times? What are the product solutions that you are trying to implement and offer so that you can meet the challenges of today? And what is happening in the currency markets in terms of the clearing and other events? So, what kind of a global look do you have at the situation that we have now?
Okay, thanks for the question. I think just in terms of my response, it'd be worth putting some framing around our activity in this space. I think that it's been well publicized that at least to the growth in emerging markets currency trading, as highlighted in the recent BIS survey, there's been a decline in the proportion of trades that settled PVP. So that's been something that CLS has been looking at very carefully. This year, we've started working with the industry and regulators to explore the development of a solution that would implement PVP for a wider range of emerging market currencies. And in doing so, we've recognized that possible solutions to the problem will probably include adjusting CLS's current model to provide an alternative form of PVP protection to that which is applied in CLS settlement today. Bringing in currencies under the current framework and the current rulebook of CLS settlement is complex and confronts various challenges. So CLS is looking at options to reduce settlement risk, certainly for the larger and mid-tier emerging market currencies traded in particular against the dollar and the euro. The other area that we're looking at related to that service is to explore options that may include liquidity optimization, so reduced funding requirement as part of such a new service. So how does that, I guess, that's a big piece of work currently been undertaken by CLS. In terms of how it dovetails with the wider market, certainly in terms of my interaction, a wide range of market participants that we've engaged with this year are very, very receptive, clearly have a desire to mitigate more settlement risk. I thought it was particularly interesting to read the detail of the recent publication from the FSB, and it very much is in line with this CLS initiative. I'll note just a few points on that FSB publication. It was published last Tuesday, only just a week ago, and it's the Stage 3 report related to enhanced cross-border payments, and it defines a roadmap that in itself will define outcomes, timelines, and actions for all the building blocks in the Stage 2 report. Now, if we look into Block 9, which is the areas relevant to this discussion, the focus there is facilitating increased adoption of PVP, and goes further to note key activities for the CPMI to develop a proposal for increased adoption of PVP by encouraging both enhancements to existing PVP arrangements and the design of new public sector and/or private sector solutions for PVP arrangements that currently do not exist. I think finally on that point, all that very relevant to this discussion, so finally on that point, the timelines we're working to is the BCBS and CPMI chairs will be issuing a joint letter encouraging the observance of expectations around FX settlement risk, and indeed, and also supporting the global FX code principles, and this is due in December 2020. So I guess in summary, I think that the timing of this CLS initiative is good. There's a clear, firm focus from the industry bodies on mitigating settlement risk, particularly related to emerging market currencies. So it's a major focus for CLS. Importantly, working closely with local emerging market participants in next year and beyond. Specific timelines in terms of service availability will become clearer next year. The main focus between now and mid-2021 is to design the full aspects of the service and focus on specific emerging market currencies that the market wishes us to focus on, in conjunction with conversations with our overseeing regulators.
Thank you, Keith. And indeed, what we can see that the global infrastructure is being adapted to products and new services, which is quite evident.
You know that all these technologies which are used by the market, by the infrastructure, are based on IT services. which nowadays are the key factor for the success both in bank business and the stability of servicing institutions in infrastructure. In this respect, I'd like to look at this issue at a different angle, probably concerning the post-trading IT companies, service providers of software, which help the banks to automate the processes, not only the banks, but they provide for stability, to render stable services, to stick to contingency in business. I'd like to give the floor to Dmitry Zelensky, Calypso. Zelentsov, I'm sorry. Dmitry, from the perspective of IT vendor, as a Calypso, what is happening inside your company? Do you see any demand for particular services from the clients? Do you see any specific requirements? Or maybe nothing has changed and you are on the same path like a year or 2 years before? What are the major trends from this perspective which you can see? Pavel, thank you very much for giving me the floor. It's a great pleasure for me to take part in this panel discussion. Being a representative of a high-tech company, I'd like to voice the outlook on the trends and drivers among our clients, both Russian and foreign clients as well. As of today, we can see two major drivers in place for development of such technological platforms as Calypso in post-trade and process automation. This is the reduction in costs and regulatory component, which is kind of a burden for all our clients as the sophisticated process in post-trading in detail. As for the cost efficiency, as for the reduction in costs, we can see that many legacy systems which our clients have installed are not capable of dealing with a bigger number of volume and sophistication of some transactions. There is a lack of automation of back-office processes, which leads to processing and logging in transactions, which triggers higher operation risks on the part of the client. This leads to higher timing of transaction processing and higher cost of transaction processing. And this is the major driver for our clients in order to implement the single platforms for reporting and to process all the transactions. So thanks to Calypso, we're not the single high-tech provider for such an automation. Our clients in Russia, including Sberbank and abroad, trying to achieve higher level of seamless processing, decreasing the number of non-STPs transactions, the standardization of processes. As a matter of fact, abroad, many life cycles for typical transactions have been standardized for a period of time, and there is no know-how or no revolution in place which each of our clients can implement. Accordingly, as a result, we can see that the goal of IT architecture modernizations among our clients is a consolidation, a lower number of platforms, back-office platforms, the consolidation for the process on a single platform. So, therefore, it leads to lower costs and better business processes in post-trading. As for infrastructure clients of ours, which we have a lot as well, we are a global standard setter in our infrastructure clients, in OTC clearing for exchanges, for depositories. Our platform is a kind of a prerequisite for better processes. Just to give some statistics, it might be not FX issue, but Calypso is a platform. 86% of all the central counterparties processing transactions of interest rate swaps are working with Calypso system. Such counterparties as SME, Euros, Hong Kong Exchange, AGX, and so on and so forth. So the advantage for them is that in a single platform, they can have a cross-margin client account rendering, support of integration with other central depositories, integrated function of provision and risk management on a single platform. This is what many clients and infrastructure clients, banks and other participants of the financial markets striving for. We've elaborated on cost efficiency. Fight against costs, reduction in costs in post-trading. As for regulatory changes, we can see huge shifts connected with the following thing. Many our clients are exposed to many regulations, like Dodd-Frank, Basel III, EMIR, reporting, and so on and so forth. Just you name it. Which is kind of a burden for our clients, and they are to follow these regulations. Therefore, their technological service providers, such as Calypso, are to keep in line with those changes. In this respect, this is a huge, substantial factor for changing or replacing the platforms which will be capable of complying with those regulations. Another regulation I'd like to touch upon in the context of matching messages confirmation in SWIFT system. We see that the SWIFT has decided to undertake ISO 2020 standards to new system of MX messages system. Our global clients are getting prepared for this shift. They'd like to see their high-tech service providers be able to support box solutions for this shift, and they will allow them to be flexible and resilient in their shift to this new system. That's what we see globally and locally. If you have any questions, I'll be ready to take them. Dmitry, thank you very much. We have some questions from online participants. The first question is very interesting. I'd like to address to CLS group. Keith, we know that Ruble is not among the tools on CLS platform. I'd like to ask you the question. Are there any plans concerning Ruble transactions and to have it among other emerging markets currencies on your platform, in your infrastructure? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I can share that in our industry engagement that we've conducted this year, that the Russian ruble is consistently in the top 3 requests from our segment members in terms of the emerging market currencies they would like CLS to focus on. So I can absolutely confirm it's a firm focus for us. For our to underscore the previous point, a build out of a CLS PVP platform that is specifically relevant to emerging market currencies. So the answer is yes, supported by a broad base of opinion from the market, and we will be engaging with in the local market starting early next year as we build out the service model and we make sure that the service is operationally, technically, and legally fit for purpose in terms of each emerging market market currency that we'll support.
Thank you very much for your answer. We do understand that ruble is on the horizon of the priorities, as always, on the radar. And the next question, actually logical, NSD and PVP service, which Svetlana has described. Can you create the analog of CLS, substitution of CLS, and let's go with the Russian CLS on the basis of this? What is your opinion, Svetlana? I'd like to reiterate our previous speaker. Why not? Of course, it's possible. The service itself was created based on the model. We do have best practices on the market to learn from, and it was implied with the aim of the best practices and experience on the global market. In fact, to be close to the point, we anticipate that sooner or later, rather sooner, this service is going to be of interest not only to the participants of the financial market in Russia only, but in neighboring countries. I've mentioned that NSD is servicing our neighboring countries around Russia. That is the starting point, or even the point to continue with, the idea of to arrange Russian CLS. So the principle of PVP with possible entry into the settlement of the central bank services. Therefore, everything depends on the demand and the trends which the participants believe to be of priority. And I'd like to reiterate that the service is only about settlements, risk-free, and doesn't have any impact on the transaction component. So for the participants, nothing changes within the context of signing transactions and among the participants on the market. But the settlement component is aimed at the minimization and mitigation of settlement risks, like in platforms on global level. I believe that CLS wants to include ruble. We are including ruble based on the global best models. There are many points for cooperation rather than competition. We need to think about that. We might elaborate on that for hours what the competition models between CLS and global infrastructure can be. I might be argued at this point, but nevertheless, this is the case. Any questions from the audience? I don't see any online questions. If this is the case, I believe that we would like to thank our speakers for their participation. Thank you very much for distinguished input and your participation in our panel discussion. I do hope that it has been of use to you. Thank you very much. See you later.